right. Good afternoon to all of you and welcome to this webinar. I have with me eminent panelists from across the country joining us to discuss a very pertinent topic this afternoon, which is about hybrid teaching and learning in action. I am Chandrasekhar and I represent Jain Group of Schools. I'll be the moderator for this evening. And I'm really excited to welcome all of you to this particular webinar. And I'm sure that the 100-odd participants who have already joined, they bring with them a lot of experience and a lot of energy into this particular discussion. And we look forward for that energy to translate to questions and we can have a meaningful conversation as we go along. So the brief outline for the next 40-odd minutes is very simple. First of all, the Ed Talent Academy is presenting this entire webinar and they talk about hybrid teaching and learning in action with a lot of subtopics to cover. So right from how do we actually create an effective hybrid course till assessment and also the do's and don'ts of hybrid learning. So the idea for the panel today is to kind of have a conversation in such a way that the audience, the listeners, will carry with them a clear-cut do's and don'ts of hybrid learning, because one thing is very clear and sure for all of us, that the future of education is going to be hybrid. So we need to be prepared and we need to be geared up to handle the challenges and also the opportunities arising out of hybrid. So that's the whole context. As I was talking, the outline is simple. We are going to go around the panel where each one of them will be sharing their perspectives and their views about this important topic and bring in different dimensions to the whole conversation. And as you come along with questions, do feel free to share with us. We have a team of people who are going to look at those questions and bring it to our notice. And we are going to give ourselves good amount of time towards the end to answer all your questions. So that's the simple outline. And without much ado, let's get started. Let me quickly do a one round of introduction of all the panelists. And after that, it's an open house. So I have with me panelists who are joining me, as I said, from across the country and also across the segments of education, from school education to higher education. So joining me first is Mrs. Deepa Bhushan, Director, CP Goenka International Schools. Welcome and good afternoon, madam. Next is Dr. Namrata Jajoo, Deputy Director, MGM Group of Schools. Welcome to you too, Dr. Namrata.
Thank you.
Then we have Dr. MJ Xavier, former Director, IIM Ranchi, and currently he's with the Loyola Business School, Chennai. So welcome, Dr. Xavier.
Thank you, Dr. Chansi.
And then we have Mrs. Vamsheepriya Amar, Principal, MVJ International Schools. Welcome, Mrs. Amar.
Thank you.
Now we have Dr. Dinesh Babu, Principal, CSM Central School, joining us from Kerala. Welcome, sir. Dr. VB Pillai, former Executive Principal, Vellore International School. Welcome, Dr. Pillai. Mrs. Rachana Gandhi, I can say we both come from the same city, Hyderabad. So welcome, Mrs. Gandhi, Head of Technology from Srinidhi International School. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
And then we have Mr. Kanishk Pandey, who's Head of Partner Development at Aper Technologies. Welcome, Mr. Kanishk, and we look forward for your perspective.
Thank you.
All right. So without much delay, let's get into the meat of the conversation today. Once again, good afternoon to all of you who joined in late and in the last few seconds or minutes. We are discussing hybrid tech teaching and learning in action. So my first question to Mrs. Deepa Bhushan is, hybrid is the jargon or the buzzword of the day. And it is easier said than done when it comes to hybrid, because the one thing which comes to my mind when I say hybrid is a teacher in front of the screen, but then she has students or he has students also in the classroom. So is that the hybrid we are talking? Or how can we design an effective hybrid course when we know that that's going to be the future? And talk also about every aspect of the hybrid thing when it comes to the course, or what does it take to be a good curriculum, resources required, and the teaching in a hybrid environment. So, madam, your experience and your views, please. Over to you.
Good evening to everyone. Good evening, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Thank you very much for that question. And I'd also like to thank Ed Talent Academy for having us here. We're talking on a very pertinent topic, which is so now, right now, because we're all going into schooling completely, but all in the hybrid model. Now, the word hybrid and what it is connected to has many connotations. So there is a hybrid curriculum, there is a hybrid course, there is a hybrid school, there's a hybrid classroom, there's hybrid teaching, there's hybrid learning. And all have different connotations, I think, and it's extremely important for, I think, the teaching, learning fraternity to first understand this space. So at every level, everyone needs to, so whether it's the school leadership, the teachers who are actually working with these spaces, the non-teaching staff actually who are going to be working with the hybrid school, every person and a parent who's going to be experiencing this for their child, as well as children. So everybody needs to kind of be a part of this process to understand what exactly and which element of the hybrid school are we looking at. So when I look at a hybrid school, in a broad understanding, it just comes forth as children, studying at school and at home or on their own time, right? So when we look at it in higher education, it's really about, you have your contact classes, as well as you have your self and individual paced work that you do on your own. So there are so many different things attached to it. I'm not going to go into each one right now, but really focus on the hybrid teaching and learning that's currently going to happen. And what are the key elements that schools need to look at when planning the hybrid teaching and learning process within the school. So it's important to sit with the teachers, and we're doing this currently within our schools to understand how can it be effective. So some of the ways in which hybrid school is working, where some children are at home and studying, and some children are in school and studying. So when that's happening, the teacher at one go is teaching both sets of children. So how is she supposed to make this learning most effective for children in both the spaces, right? And that's the hybrid teaching that she is taking care of. That's one aspect of hybrid teaching that she's taking care of. The second aspect of hybrid teaching is, if the complete set of children is coming to school, are we looking at only certain elements like, which like our classroom discussion, which are lab work, practical work that are happening in school as a part of the hybrid teaching process. And at home, the children are actually taking in the information, taking in the conceptual understanding or the content understanding or individual work that the children need to do that's happening at home. So you're segregating hybrid teaching into these two aspects, and all the elements related to these need to be taken into account. So similarly, when a child is doing hybrid learning, there is some work that they do individually and some work that they do along with the group. There is some work for which they need interaction, some that they need to do with their own intrapersonal space, which is thinking for themselves. So when all this is happening, how do you structure the course content? How do you structure the delivery, the pedagogical methods and techniques that you use? I think the pandemic actually brought in technology at a real, I'd say it fast forwarded the complete process. But technology came in and ensured that we were able to work the hybrid model in a much better way. I know currently we're looking at hardware, we're looking at software, which is the most effective to deliver programs to students, even while they're sitting at home. How can we segregate the curriculum into the aspects of individual work, into practical work, into content taking in, and conceptual understanding? Where is it that they require discussion? So you're actually you're relooking the subjects from silos of content and question answers, and just going through the Bloom's taxonomy, to really breaking up now the content in a completely different manner in the teaching learning process. So this is a space that we're all working in, and I think and across the world, we're doing this. So, we have been talking to principals internationally also who opened up their schools and were facing challenges with this space. We're working with it in India with smaller numbers, in a sense. When international schools work, we're working with smaller numbers. We know that the national schools and the local schools are working with larger numbers. How can they ensure all their teachers are equipped to deliver a hybrid program is actually another level, of course, a lot of unlearning and learning that needs to happen for teaching teams and school leaderships at this point of time. I'm sure each one of my panelists will have many more thoughts to give on this, but this is the space that we are in currently. I'd say as a whole nation and as the whole world, because it's the first time that the whole world is going through such a challenge, everyone is in the space of trying to understand how we can make hybrid teaching and learning effective for students, and there is no learning loss in that space.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you very much for those dimensions, and very well articulated in terms of the challenges, because making it effective is one thing, but there are different buckets in which we need to make it effective. Interpersonal, intrapersonal, individual, at home, at lab, and lot of unlearning and relearning. Absolutely, because the last 1.5 to 2 years has been like a roller coaster ride in terms of our mental grasping ability. What we learn, we kind of challenge ourselves in saying, is it implementable or is it relevant right now, and what's the new thing? All right, let's move to Dr. Namrata. And Dr. Namrata, your take on this. In addition, I would like you to talk about a hybrid curriculum, if you can give some insights there. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Good evening to everyone. For us at the Mahatma Gandhi Mission Group of Schools in Aurangabad, the learning journey over the last 2 years has been both daunting and exciting, challenging and satisfying, unexpected, and I would say reimagined. While this might sound paradoxical, I feel if the pandemic, pushed us into this accelerated new normal, like Dr. Deepa just said, the receding pandemic, hopefully, is now putting us into a new normal 2.0. So what does this current avatar of the new normal look like for us in particular? So it's a blend, of course, of online and offline learning. Often teachers are having to be omnipresent in the two modes, right? Classroom management itself has a new definition now because they're delivering their lesson in the online and offline space simultaneously. Let me start with, how we have reorganized our curriculum and what components have lent themselves to the online and offline modes. So our endeavor, of course, in either of these modes is to build both content and character in our students. And that is how our timetable is designed as well. Currently, children from grade 8 to 12 are coming on campus. They come for fewer hours to school, and some elements and components of the learning are continuing to be online. So that's like the hybrid model for us. For sports and practical sessions, the on-campus in-person mode has a clear vote. And of course, it's a joy now to see the children on the sports ground, energizing the space with their emotions and actions. And alongside, of course, for the younger children, we continue to have online sports sessions. One thing I think which we've cracked is the online daily school assembly, which our principals are actually preferring to hold online. Reason being, it saves time. It's much easier to address the school as a whole online, and showing audio, video material is quicker. And we've also kind of experienced that children are more participative when they are in an online school assembly. Again, of course, the special assemblies, events, celebrations continue to happen in the school assembly hall for the higher grades. And another thing which we are continuing to do online is the webinars and seminars for our children and parents. Advantage being that we can invite eminent guest speakers from any location, and they are available even if the time and travel constraints exist. Teachers, for that matter, because you just spoke of curriculum, they are preferring in person for all teaching sessions where they're introducing a new concept or a topic. What we are continuing to do online is follow-up sessions or one-on-one coaching or doubt clearance sessions for the children. They are very effective online. They also, give the teacher and the student the comfort of being present in their home setting and sometimes even beyond their school hours. So I think there is an ease there. Assessment wise, again, a very important part of the curriculum. We've seen that in the online mode, the higher order MCQ type questions based on Bloom's taxonomy work very well. Project work also is a great idea for online work. Here I'd like to highlight one challenge though which we are facing, and that is of online corrections. So often the teacher might, and corrections is not just for the examinations, right? So children are submitting their homework, and much of this is being corrected and assessed by the teachers, and they are sending it back as an update to the children. However, we are realizing that the children sometimes miss saving their corrected papers, or they just do not go back to refer to it, which means it's a missed opportunity of learning from whatever earlier mistakes they might have made. We thought a good idea to solve this was to save the work on hard drives and backups, which we've been trying to do, but I think we're still struggling a bit in that area. There's nothing like children working in their notebooks and submitting it to the teachers for assessment. So in fact, we've recently insisted on notebook submission as well. And many of our teachers have actually reported that the writing skills in children have gone down, and therefore corrections are becoming more tedious. Talking of challenges, another big challenge I would say is how some parents take hybrid sessions for granted. So we are seeing them go for functions and celebrations and getting their child to attend sessions from really unsuitable places. For example, very recently we had this child who was not unmuting himself. His video was switched off, and he's a sincere child. So the teacher got back to him saying, what happened? And then this child says, ma'am, there was no way I could have switched on my video, and there was.
Well, I think there is some connection issue there. I see her image frozen, but I think we get the drift here that the parents are taking it for granted when it comes to hybrid, because they feel that they have the flexibility of marking attendance. Okay, you're back. We lost you for a couple of seconds there. Yeah, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that was one. The second thing that I was actually talking of is kind of, how indiscipline in children and even parents might be promoted in the online mode. So for example, if a child gets a plate, the parent is just, ensuring that the child is sitting in front of the machine. But however, we've noticed sometimes children haven't taken a bath, they've not eaten, they're dressed shabbily. And I mean, that's something which at least at school level is unacceptable, right? And then I think, we all have to basically get ready and adapt to a more mature model of hybrid teaching with commitments from all the stakeholders. That's critically important, right? Again, I mean, we have equipments like projectors and tripods in the classroom. However, the challenges of audio connectivity often continue, right? And many children and even teachers are on mobile handsets, which sometimes is a stress of its own, when teaching and learning is happening on a small screen through the day. And the buck always stops at the teacher. So if the child has not learned, the parents are very quick to blame the school. So yeah, I mean, we have those hitches which we are trying to work our way through. We have continued community service projects. We have value building sessions with online partnering with organizations such as Hem Virtues. So that we are really, really happy about and proud of. And on a closing note, I want to spotlight, our youngest children. So these are the children who haven't seen the physical school yet, right? So they haven't experienced in-person schooling. So we have now started, opening the doors to them with individual visits with their parents for familiarization, and hoping, that when this child can actually see the space, feel the soft toys, maybe see the butterflies fly around, they'll probably fall in love with the school, the play area, their teacher. So yeah, I mean, and of course, in the lockdown period, we've also, taken this opportunity to redesign many of our learning spaces, which have now become even more welcoming and inspiring the culture that we actually want to continue to build in the years to come. So yeah, that's that little nugget, little story from our end. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think definitely all of us will resonate with those things, and challenges, of course, are there, and we need to figure it out as we go along. Now, let's move on to Dr. Xavier, and let's hear his perspectives, because he brings to the table perspectives from the higher education and also from varied sources. So, over to you, Doctor, if you can share with us. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm the odd man out here because I'm in higher education space. I readily agree to join here because I always believe that schools are much ahead of higher education institutions. So I'm here to learn definitely from you. Look forward to a lot of interesting ideas, insights from you. Apart from teaching, I'm also the chair for the Center of Technology and Innovation at Loyola Institute of Business Administration at Chennai. So I've been driving this entire digital transformation right from the time this pandemic hit. Now we have done a lot of things. I can talk on that, but then I think let's come to some understanding on what are we really talking about when we say hybrid learning. I've been hearing, for example, flipped classroom. Last 15 years, I've been in this space. I've been advocating it, but now it is happening a little faster. Then this flipped classroom, from there, we move to what do we call the blended learning, right? So now we call it hybrid learning. But then we tend to use all these things interchangeably. But I think my understanding is that hybrid learning is something which should become a lot more personalized, customized to the individual needs of the student, and allow them to flourish and develop in their own kind of way. So our curriculum, our assessment, our everything should gradually move towards that individualized attention and then teaching learning kind of a thing. But we are used to the old mold of teaching, so we want to take students in a batch and then process them. At the end of 1 year, you move them to the next standard, and then again. So it's like an assembly line production. So we are still in that 18th century industrial production model. Instead, we have to move to something different. But it's not easy. So it is a combination of many things. So what we are trying to do is, they can attend online classes, they can attend, they have recorded classes, they have recorded videos, and then beyond a point, allow them to move in different areas. Like, for example, if a course is 30 hours, 10 hours we give them. It's a group, entire group. But after that, allow them to, go into various areas, which is on a self-study mode. And then in terms of assessment, for example, what our director always keeps saying is that singers must be tested on singing and dancers must be tested on dancing. So what we do is 50% of assessment is common to everybody. Then another 50% we try to give them an opportunity. If you're good at writing, I'll test you on writing. If you're good at presenting, I'll allow you to present. If you're good at dramatics, you make a skit and then present it. So we are experimenting, right? So it is basically possible because the technology. Right from day one, what I did was I bought these flipboards and installed in classrooms, and then integrated with either Zoom or WebEx. It will run on any of these platforms. So teachers can teach right there, and then students can attend from anywhere. Students can be right in front of you, or they can be in the remote location. They can be in the hostel. Which we have done in all the classrooms. About 10, 12 of the classrooms, we have this flipboard. Now our teachers are demanding that I'll teach only if the flipboard is given there. This is number one. I set up a studio and made all the faculty to record their classes. So the recorded lessons are already available. So in regular courses also, if you have to repeat the same thing, you don't repeat. You give the recorded videos, ask them to learn on their own. And then spend the time in terms of doubt clearing, coaching, mentoring, and use it for something else, field work, field projects, and so on and so forth. I think the idea is clear that ultimately we have to move to the information age. How do we use information technology to make education a lot more interesting, lot more appealing, and lot more focused, customized to the individual needs of the students. If I get a second chance, I'll elaborate a little more on what we are attempting and what possibly we should be all doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think quite a lot of insights there, even for us in schools to take it forward. But I see some kind of a common thread developing here between Mrs. Deepa and also Dr. Xavier in terms of hybrid is there are three perspectives at least, or three dimensions. Number one, things which happen at home, things which happen at school, and also things which happen at the pace of the child, wherever the child wants to do, or the student or the learner wants to do. So I think that's a common chord there. And I also want to really stress upon this point, which you mentioned, is let us not focus on using these words flipped, blended, and hybrid in a very interchangeable manner, because they mean different things, and for a reason they are defined differently and they mean differently. But when we are discussing hybrid, the focus and the essence is purely on individualized learning and how can we build a system which can cater to individualized, customized, personalized learning in a larger organization. Because the minute you say a school or a college, you're not talking one person or one student or one teacher, you're talking a group of people, whether it is group of teachers or group of students and class. So how can we make it personalized at the same time? How can we make it systemic? So I think that's where the conversation is. Thank you so much, Doctor. Moving forward, let's go to Mrs. Vamsheepriya Amar, where she will be sharing her perspectives about hybrid teaching. But I would like you to speak or stress upon assessments in particular, because I think we are now getting up for CBSE term 1 and all other things. So better we spend some time talking about assessment. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. And it was lovely listening to my co-panelists who've really thrown light on hybrid learning. And yes, necessity is a mother of inventions. And we've come up, at least I face now, I'm zero tolerant to anything like I'm not a computer savvy person. Because all of us have had our hands on, irrespectively be it an art teacher or a library teacher who was not indulged in taking those quality or spending the quality time with the children. Just issuing books is no longer her take. She is really indulged in many things, maybe be it gamification or maybe being something like issuing books online or probably links that is being passed and so on. But yes, to some extent, as I was listening to others speaking, corrections becomes very difficult. But when we use the term assessment, there's nothing like evaluation. So we are moving away from evaluation, and as Sir was speaking, it is more to do with personalized learning and self-assessment that we need to concentrate. And that is what NEP 2020 is also looking forward, assessment for learning and assessment as learning. So as the child is exposed to any kind of an activity, the learning outcome of that activity should initiate the child to learn all by himself. But of course, I believe the hybrid model will not bring the child back into the school for knowledge assimilation, but certainly for knowledge exchange. Because they have knowledge at their fingertips, and now Google Baba, Google Mania is there, irrespectively whether it's right, wrong, and social and emotional quotient is also, it's also fallen back now because there is no longer an interpersonal skills, and intrapersonal skills is more efficient. It has become the prime most importance for a child, because he or she is not being introvert thinking about intrapersonal, but he is more looking into his self-awareness and building that kind of life skills. So that is where I think we need to engage and uplift the interest of the child. Now, how do we do it? How are we going to make sure that every child is going to be assessed rightfully? That becomes a challenge, no doubt. But the kind of activities which teachers really set in helps the child to critically think and come out with a good kind of articulation, or rather that kind of metacognition skills, like Deepa Bhushan was mentioning right at the beginning, thinking for his thinking once again. So metacognition skills have to be really initiated, and that does not come like I cannot infuse in a child, but through activities and the learning outcomes which we set for that particular activity should initiate the child to think what he's thinking, to think whether he's thinking right, to think why he is thinking. So that should be the kind of analytical skills that the child should be thrown into, or rather should be infused with, so that he can make his own analysis of his strengths, weaknesses, and the opportunities where exactly he can strengthen his weakness. I won't call it as weaknesses, but areas which does not really motivate him, or areas which can be something which is deprived of. As a facilitator, the teacher can initiate that happen. So we should look forward for those projects, project way of putting up things, or probably I can say it's a role play activity. And sir was talking about music, dance, etc. So trying to integrate those objectives of the arts into our regular subjects. So that way, maybe the multiple intelligences of the child is also taken care of. So a music smart child is also given a chance to explore the subject the way he wants it. And this is the art of the teacher. So no technology can replace the teacher, but certainly the teacher becomes the rightful guide to help the child to progress in his way of thinking. The process orientation is very important. This is what I feel, wherein assessments can help the child. Basically, he should be taught to self-assess his own work. And that comes by habits of mind. The dimensions where we need to look forward is the kind of work culture the child is initiated with. So this work culture becomes his framework. And in that framework, he or she should analyze what he is doing and move forward. That is an assessment as he is learning. Suppose an activity is set for a child, as simple as a basketball activity, which he could have done as a sport integration in science back in school, but right now he's deprived of that kind of a playground at home. Maybe it can still be initiated in a corridor or a terrace or a living room at home, still happening. So science through playway method, maybe the geography through playway method, or any other subject. When I say playway method, it doesn't mean the methodology is constricted only to the pre-primary or maybe to the primary stage. It can be to the higher grades as well. So it is the activity which plays an important role, and assessment as learning convert the children into independent learners. And how would we make it? Try and infuse. If the child does a work, an exclamation like excellent, why is it excellent? An exclamation like outstanding performance, why are we terming it as outstanding, is very important. So when we start asking the child, well, it is a good work, but why do you think you approached it this way, will automatically help the child to think why he did that, or what is it that he has accepted himself with and going ahead. That is about the assessments, and it certainly doesn't help us to grade, but will help us to encourage the process in which the child is thinking. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those insights. In fact, the one thing which really stuck out for me was we don't have to think about moving the typical assessment online. That is not hybrid assessment. It's about trying to create different perspectives or different options of assessment. And the one thing which you mentioned is if the student can assess himself or herself on the work and then report and give them that freedom and take it forward with a system, I think that's good. And in fact, interesting if we can create that kind of a practice going forward. Now we go to Dr. Dinesh Babu. And sir, we want to hear from you and talk to us about in simple words, how can any school who's watching us today on this webinar can attempt to create a hybrid learning space going forward? Because many schools are still looking at how can we create a hybrid learning space. So over to you.
Okay. So good afternoon to my fellow panelists. So I have been listening to them. Really, I got many ideas, in fact, especially from Xavier, from the higher education. Some of the ideas, I feel very pragmatic. Even those are pragmatic in the school scenario also. So, in fact, I represent a school which is located in a remote area in Kerala. Okay, remote in the sense from a village. So, hybrid learning, as we all know, it's a mixture of online and on-campus classes. It is, as we have been doing online classes, that part is okay, it's looked after. But the thing is that taking a class simultaneously from the classroom, you need to have proper tools for that one. We need to get equipped, because I'm answering to a question, in fact, okay, we need to get equipped. As Xavier was talking about the flipped, panel or panel boards. I think every school needs to have that, so that you will be able to reach in an easier way to all kind of stakeholders here. And the advantage here, I would like to add, we need to always look at the purpose of education. The purpose of education is to develop a child 360 degrees, as they say. That is to develop a child physically, mentally, intellectually, emotionally, and socially. And when we go with the hybrid approach, I think we have scope for this as well. See, if you depend totally on online classes, I think that intellectual part is only we are able to attain. Even that also we found last year, there's a huge gap. But if you are able to bring students in the classroom and we have a mixed approach, it's an advantage. Another thing, someone was talking about the learning styles. These recorded classes will really help for that. This is going to stay in future as well. Because we have different types of learners. For example, we have auditory learners, visual learners, and kinesthetic learners, and maybe reading, writing, and also the same now. So once you have recorded classes, which is tailor-made for this type of learners, as Xavier sir was talking, students can learn the things at their own pace, at their own way. This will be a huge advantage. All the schools need to look at this point of view. Okay. And when it comes to assessment also, I would like to add assessment also. See, we have now 3 modes of assessment. That is assessment of learning, as learning, and for learning. Of learning, we test the student after product. Of course, we have a case-study approach and all that. People like Xavier sir and all, it has been there in IIMs and all for many years. And now schools also have started that approach, case-study approaches. Even that is possible now through online and offline also. But here, when it comes to, assessment for learning, where a student is assessed simultaneously, at the time of learning. So we need to get them in the school to go for a real meaningful assessment. So again, what I mean to say, hybrid learning will definitely help us to meet all those things. And other thing, once we really educate students, once we really make students aware about the assessment as learning, whereas student himself or herself is assessing that, okay, that can be again attained by using hybrid classes. It's okay.
Thank you very much. I think that's right. And I think that brings us to a lot of questions about the engaging the students on the hybrid model of learning, and how can we kind of implement hybrid education where infrastructure is not very conducive, because that's also another important aspect which we need to look at, because there are a lot of schools who nothing to kind of talk about them in a lower light, but the point here is the reality of the factor is that there are schools where connectivity is still an issue, electricity is still an issue, and that needs to be taken care of when we are looking at hybrid. So we need to cater to that as well. Moving forward, let's hear from a very experienced and senior principal, Dr. Pillai, and let's look at his perspectives, because the implementation itself is more important than the idea. So let's hear from you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone here. There's been an interesting discussion, and I have heard a lot of new ideas from my fellow panelists. That's great. First of all, my definition for hybrid learning is this: simple. There are three modes. There is online mode, virtual mode, face-to-face mode. And in online mode, we have two sub-modes. One is synchronous, another one is asynchronous. And learning is at the center of everything. Learning is not separated from assessment. Assessment is part of learning. So this is my definition for hybrid. And a teacher should be able to move from synchronous to asynchronous, online to virtual, virtual to face-to-face, and the seamless movement should happen. And learning should happen as well. And learning should be equitable. Equity means we have to find the need of each child. And we have to plan our learning accordingly. Every student is different, as many panelists mentioned here. The need of everybody is different. I will take the analogy of a pizza. When we go to buy a pizza, we decide our topping. We do not let the pizza seller to decide the topping for us. Similarly, a student should have the right to decide what kind of topping he needs. That topping we are, as teachers, should be able to provide. That is hybrid. So that equitable learning, teaching learning process should happen. So for this, there should be a kind of, different steps we have to follow. One thing, creating a learning environment. Learning environment, actually we decide if it is physical classroom, we have to ensure that the physical aspects are in place. If we are going on virtual or synchronous, asynchronous modes, we have to decide the platforms like Teams or Google Classroom, whatever it may be. We have to decide that learning environment should be created. Then we should have the class community, how they have to learn, how we have to create the community for learning, or how we have to equip the community for learning, that the student community for learning. Then the teacher has to design the teaching and learning aspect. That design should have the end in mind, what students should learn at the end of this lesson, the end in mind. And assessment is part of that. Student engagement and assessment is part of that learning process. So for that, actually, there is a model created long ago, even before this pandemic. There was a seminal research started in 1999, and it went until 2011 about online teaching and learning. They created a framework called the Community of Inquiry Framework. This Community of Inquiry Framework has got three specific areas, actually. One is social presence, another is teaching presence, and the third one is a cognitive presence. Actually, a fourth one is in place now, that is called emotional presence. Emotional presence and even the learner presence also are incorporated in that one. But learner presence comes in cognitive presence certainly, and the social presence, emotional presence comes in social presence. So in social presence, the teacher equips the learner for learning. See, it is very important to develop a concept called a learner agency in the students in hybrid learning. Learner agency is known to many educators now. It is not a new term, but from 2015 onwards, it is in wide currency. The reason for it to become wide currency was that in 2015, there was a research finding massive unemployment among educated youth and massive unavailability of employable youth. That was a research finding. That is when the learner agency concept came back to, the mainstream, and IB and all started using a learner agency later. In learner agency, students have the voice, choice, and ownership in their own learning. So this voice, choice, and ownership, and finally they attain self-efficacy. So this we have to accept as educators, and otherwise we will not be able to attract them to our class. As somebody mentioned here, students will never come to the class for learning now. Learning is available everywhere. There will be knowledge, not for acquiring knowledge. They will be coming for knowledge exchange and socialization. So social presence is very important aspect of it. We have to create that one, which will motivate the students to come to our class. The other one is proper lesson plan. Then my bi-modal lesson plan. BI, that's what I'm saying, bi-modal. Two aspects. One is for the online aspect or virtual synchronous, virtual online synchronous, asynchronous. One for that, for every child, every student of the class. One for physical. So the bi-modeling lesson design should be there. In the lesson design, teacher should write clearly what the student and teacher will do in the classroom and what will be the outcome. And that will create a cognitive presence among the students. Cognitive presence is critical thinking, problem solving. Every 21st century aspects will come in that cognitive presence. That way, students should be motivated to come. They should be given self-efficacy. They should be given their own opportunity. And I also observed one of the learners, one of the audiences asked, someone asked a question whether this is going to be the future. Yes, hybrid learning is going to be the future. Reason, even if we contain the problem, the present corona problem completely, there could be another problem later. There could be a situation where a student is sick and not able to come to the class. A teacher is not well, not able to come to the class physically. The teacher said that I'm ready to take class from home. We should give that opportunity. So hybrid is going to be the way of the world for some time. After some time, there will be another model coming in for sometimes we don't know, because we don't know what's going to be happening in the future. But if we do that one, certainly we will have effective classroom. So let me sum up. Let us understand what hybrid mode is. Let us not detach assessment from learning. Learning is part of that one. Assessment should happen ongoing, as somebody mentioned. Assessment as learning, assessment for learning, assessment of learning, everything should happen. And we also have to develop. I was actually very much curious to listen to Mrs. Deepa Bhushan about the assessment part, the bookmarking part, and students learning, not able to join the class from some environment. These things will be avoided if we are developing learner agency in them. Then the students themselves will say, I'm not coming. I have to attend the class. They have their own ownership in their own learning. When that is there, then notebook, of course, certainly is required, writing is required, but at the same time, we also should learn to go ahead with the new things. Learning, actually writing was a technology at the time of Socrates, and he was against writing. He said that will affect memory, so do not write, always remember everything. So writing, if writing goes and there is an alternative for writing, why should we insist on writing? So that should go, if that has to go. So we should not bind the students to write, they should be allowed to type as well. Like when there is calculator available, other devices available, why should the students learn multiple tables, multiplication table? That can be easily identified. So we have to move ahead with the time. All these are part of, hybrid learning. Probably, I don't know, I am sure that many people will be angry with me when I said that multiplication table is not required or writing is not required. But that is reality. After some time, we will realize. For example, when we had computers for the first time in India, there was an outcry against it. There was a strike against it. They said, we don't want computer here. That would take away the employment. But what happened after that? Similarly, writing will go away. Unwanted things I don't want to keep in my mind when I am able to check and answer you. And these things are at my fingertips. Then why should I keep all these things in my mind? Why should I engage my mind unnecessarily like that? So all these things are there to be considered when we are, going ahead with the hybrid teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pillai. I think quite radical thoughts, quite interesting, and also at the same time, coming from you, because as a senior person, experience handling different environments, if you are embracing change at this pace, it's a great positive, outlook for people to look at it. That I know that it may take some more time for calculators to come in full-fledged and multiplication tables to go out of our curriculum. But the point here is, let's embrace change. Let's be open for newer methodologies and newer techniques to enter into the education space. Now we will go to the last two of the panelists who have been very patient, listening to all other panelists and understanding and assimilating their thoughts. But these two people will give us different perspectives for the simple reason that Mrs. Rachna Gandhi is the head of technology at an international school. Now, one of the questions which came up a while ago is, for hybrid education to become effective, the teacher should be effective. And as a leader or as a school, what are the steps you can take to bring in that effectiveness in the teacher? So, Mrs. Gandhi, apart from your take on hybrid teaching, learning, and action, I want you to cover this aspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Thank you for that. So I think everybody has been talking about the same thing, the hybrid learning, and everybody has their valid perspectives towards it. I will talk from a practical point of view because, as I mentioned, our school is open and running, and we have seen a lot of practical experience from this. I like what Dr. Pillai just said, we have to give agency to our students, and that's what my school believes in. And so we've seen two groups of students. There was a set of students who was very shy, and in face-to-face learning, they would never talk, and they would never open up, they would never be seen in the class. While in the online environment, they took more pride in their work and they were happy sharing it because they didn't have the eye contact. They could keep the camera off and yet, give their work in. So that emotional aspect of the student, we understood only when the students came back. And there's another group of students who is, self-motivated learners, and they take agency in their work. And in fact, we went back to them and we asked them that, are you okay coming back to school now? And these are DP2, 12th grade students I'm talking about. So they said, no, we don't want to come back to school because now we have paced our learning ourselves and we know how to achieve our targets. So these motivated learners are all by themselves and they want to continue the hybrid or online learning. So now the school has a lot of challenges, one of the biggest challenges is how to manage this. So the teacher is, practically when I have experienced this myself, when you are in the class, we have all of the technological gadgets that one would want, the interactive panel and cameras and tripods and everything possible. But really it is a problem for a teacher to connect with the student. When you are teaching in a class, you have that connection with your child. Whereas in online, you are just seeing it may be a one-way communication sometimes. So I think the schools now need to think of two models of working. That's something which we have learned over experience, that you have a section of your classes run face-to-face and dedicate a section of your class which is online. So that, you are really looking at that individual student and you are giving them the individual attention that you would want them to have a lot of more differentiation within the class and get that going. So from the technological perspective that Dr. Chandrasekhar just mentioned, we need to equip our teachers, not only, give them the tools and technology, but also give them the tools how to handle this situation at a one-on-one level with the student. So if there is a slow learner, what are those differentiation techniques that you need to apply in a class when you have students in class and online, because these two are really different scenarios altogether. So I think a lot of focus that the PD sessions within the schools need to focus is on the differentiation. What differentiation techniques can teachers use? How special educators can help the regular teachers in the classrooms to build that skill, because up until now we were just depending on the special educators to give that differentiation. But when the differentiation has to happen at every child's level, I think the teacher in the class needs to be really equipped with those tools, and the focus really needs to be on the PD for the teachers. That has to be significantly taken up by the leadership. So yeah, that is from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, I agree with you that the student agency has to be provided, and that needs to increase as we go forward. And I think it's much easier and faster when it comes to implementing that in hybrid mode of learning and teaching. All right, so let's come to Mr. Kanish. Your perspectives, and also give us your insights on tools available to schools and educators as to how we can take that up and effectively implement hybrid learning. And some of the audience in the room as well have asked the same question. So over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Thank you all. I see doctor, and I see Mr. and I'm like, wow. Thank you, Talent Academy, for bringing me to the panel. Hi, I'm Kanish Pandey. I'm the Partner Development Head for Apar Technologies. What is Partner Development Head? We are a product company in a tech space. So my job is to basically help our partners across the country to project our products, display our products, to explain our products, and get their feedback and give it to our technology team so that they can, they keep on improving our products. So that's about me. Being in the edtech space day in, day out, hybrid teaching techniques, hybrid education is something, it's not a new word. We've been working on it and we've been listening to it for a long, long time now. It's like, for us, it's like an unconventional technique that requires an unconventional instructional strategies. So hybrid is something that is, it's a very, very, very broad concept. While I leave the comments on hybrid curriculum and how it can be implemented and all to all the panelists, I want to throw some light on the technology part of it, just the technology part. So as Dr. It is an amalgamation of asynchronous and synchronous activities, and teachers who are going into the hybrid structure, they need to make sure that the transition from asynchronous to synchronous and then asynchronous is seamless. Yes, it is. That is how it has to happen. But apart from that, it does not stop there. So talking about the tools that Dr. Chandrasekhar asked, we created a few months back, actually not just a few months back, around the second wave, we created, we took our ERP solution and we modified it. We made some amendments and we implemented it as a test to around 30 to 40 schools. And we gave them the solution and we said that you just use it. And after the pandemic ended in their location, the lockdown was revoked. The schools started opening, and and we checked again. They're still using the system in the same manner. So for us, that is also a hybrid solution. They are working very seamlessly on that part. Some of them have implemented their smart classrooms with our system, and they're working there. Like Mrs. Deepa Bhushan said, very rightly said, there are very different aspects of hybrid education. And yes, there are. You can make a part of your curriculum hybrid. You can make your school hybrid. You can make just one classroom hybrid. You can just make one part of your course hybrid, or for that matter, your assessments hybrid. But at the same time, what you're going to do and how you're going to do is dependent upon, like Dr. Pillai said, the student. the student is, it has to be made student-centric. All the education has to be made student-centric. If you're not able to do it like that, hybrid education will fail down the line. As a technology person, and by my experience, just a few things that I see where I feel that hybrid education should be there, but a few things that we should keep in mind while implementing this. Just like if it is possible at any point, if we are able to take all our classes online instead of keeping it part online and offline. I understand that. I understand your definition of hybrid means that some part could be done online and some part could be done offline. I understand that part. But what I'm trying to say here is, instead of bringing the physical classroom to the virtual learners, just make the whole classroom online, like through a learning management system or something like that, so that your infrastructural cost is safe. I'll get to that part also, how we can do that. But the second point that I want to focus on, like Dr. Chandrasekhar asked, the tools. There are tools, and Dr. Namrata also mentioned that we cannot, we cannot assess the classwork or the project work online. It is because you are still using the primitive methods. There are tools online. We work very closely with Microsoft, and Microsoft helps us in faculty development programs where Microsoft trains faculties from various schools on these tools. There are tools like OneNote, there are tools like Sway. They teach faculties on accessible content. They teach faculties on various numerous topics. Of course, it is centric to Microsoft itself. But apart from Microsoft, there are other tools as well. ClassKick, Whiteboard, Chat, Notepad, Nodal, a lot of names. Flipped. Dr. Xavier was talking about Flipped Classroom. There is an app called Flip for digital classroom for this particular thing as well, where teachers can create project works and can give it to the students, where students can do it themselves and it can be assessed. The problem of forgetting things, noting down things is removed there, just like that. It's a very simple task. The problem I see here that I have felt with my range of schools is that there is a lack of awareness around these tools. A lot of schools from the West are using these techniques for years and years. We are just trying to use it because we're trying to use it as a patchwork. We're trying to use it as a band-aid, so that, okay, down the line, if the school reopens, okay, I'll be fine with it. But
no, I think Mr. Kanishk, I think I would like to interrupt here. The fact here is, one thing is very clear. The writing on the wall is, I think hybrid is here to stay. Yeah. And West or East, we are not looking at doing it as a band-aid solution. I think all of us, my fellow panelists, will agree here that technology is already entered our lives and schools beyond our imagination and in a very fast pace. Taking from where you left, I want to kind of circle back to all of us is, we have discussed at length about different dimensions of hybrid, and right from definition of hybrid to implementation of hybrid. Mm-hmm. But I want to spend the last 4 or 5 minutes. I know that we are supposed to end at 5, but we are already 5:03. Maybe I'll take another 6 minutes to close it by 5:10. But the last 6 minutes, I want to really ask my panelists, including you, to take a go at these 2-3 questions which we need to answer. One of our attendees asking, how can we effectively implement physical education classes in a hybrid mode? So I don't know if any of you have tried doing physical education on hybrid mode. I did hear Dr. Namrata talking her primary classes have physical. So maybe Dr. Namrata, you can start, and anybody else would want to add quickly, you can take it forward from there.
Yeah, so I think for us, it is majorly on ensuring that we're developing the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills. And the teachers design the activities in a way that the child is able to be participative online. And it's not just about giving instructions and, following them. So it's often, in the form of a game where the child is in focus on the camera. so that the teacher can correct them, because we have to be very careful. They're young children, they should not be harming themselves. And again, there's the fun element which we've added to it, which we would probably in a classroom, children would move around more, but here children use a restricted space, but there is fun and there is integrated learning. So we generally would integrate science with sports or English with sports. So that kind of helps the child to learn and make best use of the time. So that's how we've designed it. Other panelists could please add your perspectives.
Sure. Thank you so much. Anybody else who'd like to add about this? In addition to that, yeah, Mr. Kanish, please go ahead.
So it's just a case study that I'm taking up here. We just few months back, we tied up with an organization called A Scouts and Group. It's a scout and guide group organization, basically, who goes to schools, who used to go to the schools and delivers scout and guide activities. So after the pandemic, their work stopped. So we tied up with them and we started delivering their courses through the online media. So through that, they were able to deliver it very easily. Of course, the range of the courses was limited there. They were limited to yoga, certain motivational activities, a basic level of physical activities. But yeah, I believe it comes under physical education to some extent. So that's why I wanted to mention that, yes, it can be done. With technology developing, yes, we can achieve that.
Great. Thank you.
I'll just add one more point, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Yes. Yes.
In most of the CBSE schools, we follow HPE pattern, that is health and physical education, which is again concentric on 4 strands. So second strand speaks about all regarding the battery of assessments. And that could be done because it's only about the fitness, it's not about the competition. And so children can do it. Videos can be showcased using technology, and PE instructor can go ahead. Maybe he can give a little briefing about the theory aspect of it. And children can certainly do it wherever it is, until we do not tell it is for a competition, but it is for your fitness, the physical comfort of them. And also it depends, like each school may rank its own priorities. Like Dr. Namrata was telling, they concentrate more about gross motor skills. Maybe if I'm thinking about the physical fitness, we can go ahead, and CBSE has given us wonderful curriculum. We all follow the same. So it is possible, even maybe, yes, only 1 battery of assessment or 2 out of the 7 battery of assessment may not be conducted, but yet it can be explained. And as I told you earlier as well, we can have it in on a terrace or probably in the corridor and take the parental interface into confidence, and that will happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There is a question which has come up from one of the attendees, Veena Govind. How do we address the challenge faced by children with special needs? So any examples, anything you want to share as an inclusive school? How do you do that? Anybody can go forward.
I think I can speak. One thing, as I mentioned when I was speaking also, we should not be teaching the middle of the class, which most teachers do. We do not take into consideration the weakest and the topmost. We usually go with the middle of the class. That's a common practice by most of the educators I have observed. It is because of this problem, some students do not perform very well, and those students who are able to perform better than they are not able to excel in a better way. That is where there's a system called multi-tier support system. If you Google, you can find it. Multi-tier support system. It is called MTSS. In the MTSS format, you group the students into middle, just above middle, and on the top. Middle, then 2 upwards, middle, and 2 downwards. So 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 groups within the class itself. So the requirement of each student group may be different. And you have to design your activities within the class accordingly. There can be different assessment, different patterns. Everything can be possible in the MTSS. Of course, this time is not good enough to talk at length about MTSS. But with this MTSS in place, we can certainly take these children also into consideration, and we can handhold them, we can scaffold them and take them to the level of the middle of the class. It is possible, and there are proven research outcome to prove that this is possible. MTSS is the way. Please Google, you will get it. Multi-tier support system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pillai. The other question which I want to really take it is in terms of the difference, because we heard different words about hybrid, online, virtual, face-to-face. So one question is, what is the difference between online learning and hybrid learning if the student is learning from home online?
Do you mind me answering that as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, learning, of course, happens in different modes. Learning happens from the teacher and the student's personal engagement. This personal engagement can happen two ways. One is physically face-to-face. Another one is digitally face-to-face. That is online. In addition to these two face-to-face, there can be asynchronous activities. That is, you give the students work to do on their own pace and engage them and bring back. There is another total different method called virtual option. In virtual option, you design the complete class. That is what most of this lesson, Udemy and all, they do it. They design the full class, they record it, and once you join, you can join any time of the year, any time of the day, you finish, and once you complete, you get your certificate. That is a virtual program. So in a hybrid mode, all these things should be blended. It's not only the online face-to-face. It is synchronous, asynchronous, physically face-to-face, digitally face-to-face, or we can call it phygital. I heard somebody using phygital, the word phygital, and it is possible that one, and virtual also. So that way we can engage students. That is hybrid. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question which I would like to really ask any of the panelists is in terms of this digital divide which is getting created in the country. I mean, what COVID and pandemic has exposed is the digital divide of lack of access to network or technology or even electricity and other things. What are the ways? I know that the government and the larger machinery are already working at it, but what are the things, the hacks which we have come up in our own journey, which we can share for the larger interest of the audience? Dr. Xavier, I would like you to really take lead here and set the tone, and then maybe others can share their practices. And with that, we will conclude this.
Yeah, in reality, I mean, it is a fact. If you go to Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and parts of Bihar, there are no schools, leave alone, internet connectivity, no teachers. It's a pathetic situation. So India as a country is very vast and very diverse. So there is a problem, and we need to build the digital divide. But a state like Tamil Nadu, what they have done is they started this broadcast. They got the best of the teachers. Sometimes even IIT professors are roped in to teach 10th class, 12th class. And then they started a TV program. So for different classes, it runs at different times. So anyway, TV reaches most of the places. But then, I mean, it may not work even in remote places like that. So ultimately, it is a government's responsibility to set up this kind of connectivity, last mile connectivity up to every village. In the absence of that, what can be done is bring the students to the nearest town and then have study centers. Some of the universities are attempting that, so that students could come to the nearby town, assemble there. There is a study center where connectivity is made available, where they do the work and go back to their villages. And they should not travel more than 10, 15 kilometers. Like that, you have to form clusters and then work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ways of bridging the digital divide, especially in our schools where you cater to, if anybody can? Yeah, Mr. Gandhi.
So Yeah, the students themselves can take a lot of initiatives. I know what Dr. Xavier is talking, it has much larger scale, but in our own ways, we have encouraged students to donate their devices because, many of us have multiple devices, and they did come forward and they gave those devices to the nearby villages. And bit by bit, I think we can bridge the gap. Yes, the government really needs to put in their efforts and make it one of the essentials for each one of us. But at our level, I think the social projects that each one of us runs in schools can be a start point where children can donate their extra devices or even, collect money for giving devices to schools who really need them, because there is nothing better than education that one can give to anybody. So I think instead of the donations like, having small parties or clothes or things like that, this should also take focus that we give them the device and we get them from students, because when they take initiatives, they take responsibility.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I think with that, we can say that we will conclude this panel discussion on that note that everybody can take initiative and we can help each other. But just to quickly summarize as we go along in the next 1 minute, when we started off at 4 p.m. today, we were talking about the elephant in the room, which is hybrid teaching and learning in action. But suddenly, fast forward 1 hour and 15 minutes, we have covered the entire gamut with different perspectives and exposing its dimension. I mean, right from what is actually the way we define hybrid and what are the elements of hybrid, like at school, at home, and at your own pace, from Mrs. Deepa Bhushan to Dr. Namrata highlighting very, very articulately the challenges of the hybrid model as well as the online model, which we have been used to in the last 15, 16 months. Then we came to Dr. Xavier, who spoke about how each school can take initiative to set up a studio or a flipped classroom and then use that to reach out to the students, and brought in a lot of examples from the higher education segment. And I'm sure those are pragmatic solutions for even schools. Then we have Mrs. Vamsheepriya Amar, who spoke about a lot of things when it comes to the current avatar of the student, the CBSE's infusion, the physical education, and how we can handle that in the CBSE framework. Then the way how we deliver content and build character at the same time. A lot of these things were discussed about that there. Then Mr. Dinesh Babu brought in his perspectives from his own area and how we look at assessments and assessment as an integral part of learning and hybrid model. Then we have the model or the framework which was given to us by Dr. Pillai, the community of inquiry framework, and also the last one which he brought in, MTSS. So these things, I'm sure, will need a lot of more research on it, but our attendees will definitely go back and learn more and dig more into it. Then we had Mrs. Gandhi speaking about how we can empower our teachers, how the school, which is already functional in terms of physical classes coming back and students coming back to the school, her perspectives on that, and also talking about how initiative is important in education. Last but not the least, we had Mr. Kanish bringing in a variety of insights and comparing India with the West and how the future of hybrid is going to be. And not just that, he also brought in a lot of solutions with respect to tools. And I think there is one question which is already there saying, give us the names of the apps which are used for effective assessments and other things. I'm sure the organizers are going to compile a report out of this conversation, and they will handle all of that and give you a complete synopsis of this panel discussion. And they may also take care of the certification and other things which needs to be provided to the attendees. But all in all, I think we are leaving this room enriched. At least personally, I am carrying back a lot of things to do and a lot of learnings. And at the same time, we will keep this conversation going and we will keep learning from each other. So once again, officially and formally, thank you very much, all the panelists. It has been a great 1 hour, 15 minutes, amazing learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you, attendees, for joining us this evening at this Ed Talent Academy panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.